Hey guys, welcome back. Lucian here with you again, bringing another mod spotlight. Today we're going to be covering Tinker's Construct. And this is going to be a very comprehensive mod spotlight. We're going to cover from the very basics to more of the advanced stuff. So if you're more of an advanced tinker, definitely skip through about halfway the video, watch the second half, you might pick up a few things. So let's get started, talk about the history of Tinker's Construct, one of my absolute favorite mods. It originally started out in 1.4.7. The original mod developer was MDio. He is no longer maintaining the mod, and he has turned it over to Bonnie or Boney. I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation, but he was the developer for Iguana Tweaks. So now he's taking Tinker's Construct over and starting to move it forward. There is some new content coming for Tinker's Construct. We're going to start talking about, I'll do an updated mod spotlight once I get my hands on that build because it's not available yet publicly, but add some new tools and some new bows. So we'll talk about that. So now we got the history out of the way, let's get started. So first thing I'm going to cover is oreberry bushes. So you're going to find these scattered through the world, usually in abandoned mine shafts or underground somewhere. You're going to find them, they have to be in a dark structure for them to be able to grow, and when they grow you're going to be able to right click, you can get these oreberry nuggets, and what you could do is you can craft them up into ingots or smelt them into nuggets and use them. So pretty cool way to get some extra resources. These are very easy to automate with several different other mods. Autonomous activators are probably the most commonly used. You're also going to have essence berry bush. Once you right click on that, you will get these concentrated essence berry, and you just click on them and you'll get a little bit of experience. Again, very easy to automate. Now these 5 do have to be in a dark environment. The essence berry does not. So that's the essence berry bushes. A very quick rundown. Alright. Talk about heart canisters now. Heart canisters, the miniature red heart canisters will be dropped from regular mobs. Very rare chance, but you can get a handful of them. Once you get a handful of them, you can craft a heart canister, which takes a jeweled apple, which is a diamond and apple, necrotic bone, some empty canister, which is just aluminum, and then heart, and you'll get extra heart canister. Again, these yellow hearts are going to come from more of a boss, like you'll get them from like a Wither or some Tinker's Twilight Forest bosses. Again, you can craft those up with a heart canister to get a yellow heart canister. Now what do these do, you may be asking? The green ones are really only creative only or drop only, so they're much harder to get, but I just wanted to kind of show you what they do. We go into our inventory, click on this tab, you're going to have 2 little slots right here, and what they are is they are a permanent heart increase as long as you have them equipped. So as you can see, I now have 12 hearts, so I have the 10 plus 2, which just correlates with these 2 add-on right here. So pretty cool. So you can have your 10 base hearts, another 10 here, and another 10 here. So pretty neat. Next we're going to talk about decorations blocks. Here's all the decoration blocks you can make with Tinker's Construct, and the way you make these is you're going to use a chisel. You just shapeless crafting. You can see like this one is just a piece of diamond, just a piece of iron. So it's a pretty good way to make some fancy decoration blocks with just using a chisel. Now Tinker's Construct is known for their tools, and we are going to talk about tools very soon, but I just wanted to kind of be a very comprehensive, cover everything in the mod. So that's your decoration blocks. Alright, next let's talk about slime islands. Let me jump over and do creative so I can get a little bit of flight going. So you're going to find slime islands not super frequently, but they're not rare either. And what they are is just these floating islands. Now I'm in peaceful mode. If I was not in peaceful mode, I come up here, you would find some blue slimes. And what's cool about here, let me jump out, jump back into survival. You'll have this slime pool with some liquefied slime in it, and you'll have these slimy trees. Now this is really cool. Just some seeds. is you can actually break this congealed green slime and get 4 slime balls out of it. Pretty neat. And you can also break these slimy leaves and you'll get some blue sapling or blue slimes, which you can use in your crafting of tools, and you also will get a slimy sapling usually. So you can see once I broke all the leaves up there, got a handful of saplings. Now this is probably a pretty good way to bring back to your base if you are using slimes very often. Just come and find a slimy tree and then just set this up your base and kind of farm it out. So let me jump back, and you know what, let me just stay in creative for a minute, and we're gonna fly over here. As you can see, there's another slime on, but since I'm in a super flat world, they seem to be spawned a little close together. But that's more the exception than the rule. So I'm gonna come over here to this village. Now what's really cool about this village is often they will have a Tinker's Construct hut, and they'll be a villager. The villager was probably over there somewhere. So if you're out scoping things out, searching for a place to set up, this would be a great place to stop in. You can pick up some of these blocks that you're going to need to make your tools. You can just snag them instead of crafting them. A lot of times you'll also find some pieces and parts right here, like you see. And sometimes you'll find it in the crafting station too. Looks like there's parts of a sword. So you could probably, with a stick, you can make a sword right off the bat. Here's a part chest. Now one thing about these Tinker's Construct huts in the village, this is the only way, to my knowledge, to get the wide guard pattern. This is not a craftable item. You only have to get it out of the huts. So while we're in this village, run over here. You can see there's actually 2 of them in this village. You can also see that there's a smeltery, part of a smeltery. So if you're planning on getting Tinker's Construct, just go ahead and snag up these bricks. It'll save you a little bit of time and effort later. Now if I can find the Tinker's Construct villager, usually wears like a green, I think it's a green outfit. Are you him? Yes, you are him. So he's trading pistons for aluminum ore berry bushes. So not a great trade, not something I would necessarily need because you don't use aluminum that much. But I just hopefully want to show you some the spawning mechanics for some of this Tinker's Construct. So look like on this one we have 2 huts in the village, and is this a third? No, that's Flaxbeards. So there's just 2 in this one. For the sake of this mod spotlight, I am using the crack pack and 1710. So that's why you're going to see some other mods in here. So let's jump back over to our little area. Got everything laid out nice and easy. So next thing, while we're talking about overworld generation, we're going to talk about the ores. So you're going to have aluminum ore that you're going to find pretty regularly, and then you're going to have gravel ore. Now the gravel ore you're going to find on the surface usually, and you are going to need a shovel, and you can see on my Walia tool tips you're going to need at least an iron tool to be able to pick these things up. Otherwise you're just going to break them and destroy them. So that pretty much covers the overworld generation. We got slime islands, we got a little bit of ore, and then we have the villages and some village mechanics. So now I've broken this up into 3 different tiers for ease of doing this. Now when you start a fresh world up, you are going to get this book called Materials and You Volume 1, and it has all the information. Basically it's an in-game wiki for this mod. So take 5 minutes to read it. There's actually 3 different books. All 3 books are available on the internet. So maybe even if you're not logged into Minecraft, you can pull up the wiki and just take 5 or 10 minutes to read through it so you can have a good understanding. But here's some of the recipes: blank pattern, stencil table, part crafter, part chest. We're going to go over all these, but I just wanted to kind of show you what some of the cool things in here. We talked about oreberry bushes, and there's some pretty cool stuff as you go through this book. So definitely go through and read this as well. There's some little cool things here at the very end. I'm not going to talk about them too much, but like here's some featherfall boots or featherfall wings. So pretty cool stuff. So definitely read over that. Alright, so now we're going to tier 1. So like I just showed you in that book, we have the tool station, part builder, and a stencil table. And they do exactly as they sound. So stencil table is where we're going to make a stencil of our part. So like you can see over here, here's all the recipes that you can make, or here's all the stencils you can make. Now you can see that this full guard is not available on this list. To make these blank patterns, it showed you in there, but just some wood. And it used to be only one. You only got one out of this, but I'm glad this was buffed up to get 4. Jump over here to my part builder. This is where we're actually going to build my parts. So let me grab some wood and some cobble and our second book. Now when you start crafting these materials up, you're going to get this second book, Materials in You Volume 2. Now if you don't get this, you can make this yourself just by simply putting the Volume 1 into a shapeless to get the Volume 2. So here is where we're going to start talking about our tools. Again, take a few minutes to read over these. It talks about all the different tools, what their specialities are, how to make them, what the ingredients are. So definitely read over them. Pretty cool. Now we're going to talk about material traits just a little bit, but mainly I'm going to talk about just wood and stone. Actually, I'm going to talk about all the ones that you can make in this tier. So we're going to talk about wood. So it has a durability of 97, a handle modifier of 1.0, and a full tool durability of 97. 97 times 1.0, 9.97, right? You can also see a little bit more information about this. Stone, 131 is the durability. Now when we talk about these full handle versus the durability, so the durability right here, this one number comes from the actual head of the weapon or the tool that you're making. So let's say if we're making a pickaxe, this number right here comes from, let's say, the stone pick head if we were making a pickaxe. A handle modifier can either be like this right here is 0.5 versus, but in an iron it's 1.3. So basically when you multiply your handle modifier times your head of your tool, that's what you're going to get your full tool durability. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to talk about the ones we can talk about right now, which are wood, stone, flint, cactus, bone, obsidian, netherrack, blue slime, green slime, and paper. I believe that's going to be it, which it is. So those are all the different resources you can use in this tier. Now if it says anywhere on here it says requires the smeltery, then obviously since we haven't made a smeltery, you're not going to be able to use it in this tier 1, this lower tier of crafting. So let's make up a pickaxe. So definitely take time to read that book. So now we have a part builder. We got our stencils that we made in our stencil table, and then this is just a pattern chest that just holds pattern. Makes sense right here. So let's make a stone pickhead, and let's do a stone binding. Now you can see on the tooltip this actually cost 1 piece of stone right here, but on the tool binding actually cost a half. So that's why I'll get my stone binding right here, and you can see that this one also costs a half. So I could do something like this if I wanted to make a stone tool rod. So in total, I only used 2 pieces of cobblestone to make this full tool, versus the 3 pieces plus a stick that you take the vanilla way. Alright, so let's come over here to our tool station. So we're going to select the pickaxe from the interface here, pop in each piece as it coordinates with the setup, and we now have our stone pickaxe. Now let's say I'm just going to toss down some cobble. Now the very cool thing that most people love, including myself, is the flexibility of the tools, and you can basically make so many different things. And it's also a repair. So let's see, I'm going to mine up this little bit of cobble right here. And now, since I'm using a crack pack and there's some additional add-on mods to this, you can see that I have on my tooltip that says my repair material is stone. I used 6 out of the durability and some other just a little bit of tidbit information. Now let's say if I use this up, you know what, I need to repair it. So let's say I'm on the anvil icon to signify that I want to repair it. And since my repair information was stone, I'll pop a piece of stone on there. Now, I wouldn't need to do this yet because it's kind of overkill, but just want to kind of show you the repair mechanic. So now I have a fully repaired pickaxe, and you can do this with all the different stages of the tools. Pretty neat, huh? Alright, so you guys got a good handle on the kind of the tier 1. Throw this stuff back for now. Don't think I'll need. I'll save this cobble. I'm going to save that. I'll throw that away as well. And I'll throw that away. So now we're going to get into tier 2. Now remember, we talked just in this book, we talked about a little bit, we're going to need to start making grout. And then grout makes seared bricks. So if we go into the tier 2, you can make grout 2 different ways. You can either make it with clay blocks, or you can make it with sand and gravel. Or you can make it with clay balls like that. It's the same recipe. Neither one's not more advantageous than the other. It still comes out the same in the end. And once you're done with that, you just stick it into a smeltery, or stick it into any kind of furnace and cook it up to get seared bricks. Now, a little bit of terminology just to get familiar. So this is a seared brick. This is seared bricks. Seared brick, seared bricks. Okay? Just kind of get used to that terminology. So let's make ourselves a smeltery. So I'm going to grab all these pieces and parts up here. And got everything kind of laid out. Now, the cool thing about the smeltery is you are kind of left to your own devices to see how big you want to make this. Now I'm going to make what was considered the old style 3x3. So I got a 3x3 on the ground right here. I'm going to basically wall it up. I have a smeltery controller. I'm not going to show you all the recipes, but all these tools, all these different parts of the smeltery are made with seared bricks and either like a piece of glass, like, you know, seared glass has got a piece of glass in it, so anything with a seared tank. But otherwise it's all pretty much all seared bricks. Alright, and then I have a tank. And then, seared window. That sounds good. Now I do have my particles off, but if you do have these little particle effects and you have a lit up controller like that, that means this is a good smeltery and you can start using it. So the way you're going to power your smeltery is with lava. So just put some lava in there. You can see on my tooltip I got 1 bucket of lava in there, and now I'm ready to start using this. So this is the standard, what used to be considered the old size. You can make them a little bit different sizes. We'll talk about the next stage. And you can also make these as high as you want. I don't know what the height limit right off the top of my head is, but I would say most of the time you're either going to get too bored, or you're going to get tired of looking for your clay and your sand and your gravel or whatever by the time you get to the world limit. I would say generally speaking. Now, there's some people that would love to prove me wrong, but generally speaking, not more than just a few tiers high is all you're going to need. So once you actually get, now let me finish putting pieces down first. So now we have our drain. Faucet goes on the drain, right? That makes sense. And then we have a casting table, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to be using this to cast our different materials. Let's toss this stuff up since I don't need it now. Now once you make the smeltery, you should automatically get this third book. It's called The Mighty Smelting. Now the Mighty Smelting, again, takes some time to read, and it's going to talk about a lot of this information. It's going to talk about what makes a smeltery, how to make them, and just some other tidbits of information. It's also going to talk about alloys. We're going to get into alloys here in just a minute. But pretty cool stuff, right? So now that we have our smelter, we can actually start making kind of the tier 2 of tools. So we had our, remember we had our stage 1, our tier 1 of materials. We kind of talked about that. Now we have a smelter. We can start moving into our kind of our tier 2 stuff. But first, before you get into your tier 2 stuff, you're going to need to make some of these blank cast. And the way you make these blank cast is either with aluminum ore and copper. It will make you aluminum brass. Or if you're in a pinch, you can use gold. Gold as well will give you a blank cast. Now, for this, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Basically, 1 ingot of aluminum brass will get you 1 blank cast. Same thing with gold. So basically 1-to-1. Now if we go back into our Mighty Smelting, if we go to our alloys section, you'll see aluminum brass is made from 3 aluminum and 1 copper. Okay? But I want you to keep in mind, since this smeltery can do ore doubling, and a lot of people do use it for ore doubling, this is actually 2 pieces of aluminum. This is 2 pieces of copper. So just make sure you factor that in when you're doing your math to make up a batch of aluminum or aluminum brass. But again, you can make your tools. You can do a lot of your ore doubling. You know, your first stages of ore doubling if you don't want to have a power setup. Very easy just to throw in. In fact, I could throw in just a quick piece of aluminum. You can see how quickly it melts up. Let's just throw a handful of things in there. And I just shift click them in. You can see you'll get a nice representation. If you have a liquefied metal in here and you accidentally get in there, you will take damage because you're getting burned from the liquefied metal. So we can see got some aluminum, and that was 2 ingots now since we put in 1 block, and you see the rest of it's melting up, and each of them have a little bit different melting temperature / how long it takes to melt. You can see once we come up here, so we have 8 ingots there, and now we have 10 ingots of molten aluminum brass, and we have a little bit of copper left over. So I didn't do my math perfect because we have to factor in that ore doubling, but 10 ingots, that'll definitely get you started very, very quickly. Okay? So now we're going to talk about how are we going to get a cast. So what I have, let me come back over here. I didn't grab one, but I will. And let's say I want to grab a stone pickaxe head. Alright, and I'm going to set this down on this casting table. I'm going to make sure my molten aluminum brass is selected in the absolute lowest slot. Now if it's not selected in the lowest slot, you could just click on whichever one and it'll automatically move to the bottom. Basically the smeltery pours from the bottom. Just keep that in mind. So you can see now our molten aluminum brass is now on the bottom, and I'm going to pour the aluminum brass over the pickaxe head, and now I have a pickaxe head cast. Pretty neat, right? And again, that doesn't get wasted. But you need to do these with stones, so you're going to have to do quite a few of them. And in this chest right here, you can see here's all the casts that are available out of NEI. I just grabbed everything out of NEI just kind of show you how to make the different patterns. Alright, pretty neat. So moving forward into this stage, I don't have a pick, but here is a tool forge. Now you remember over there we had our tool station. A tool forge is the tier 2 of the tool station. Now in this one right here, it's made with iron. So we have 4 blocks of iron, those seared bricks, and tool station will make our tool forge. Now you can make them, looks like that one's gold, that one's diamond, that one's emerald, that one's cobalt. So we got some bronze, copper. Usually I make mine out of copper and iron because when you get around to making that, usually that's what you have the most of. There's also, here's a tin, and here's an aluminum. You probably have a lot of aluminum, or if you got some aluminum brass, that one's easy to make since you got a fair amount of aluminum and copper. So that's how you make this the tier 2 of the tool station, which is now called the tool forge. Now what the tool forge does, it opens up the tier 2 weapons and tools. So like we now have the hammer, we now have the lumber axe, we have the excavator, the scythe, the cleaver, the battle axe. The battle axe is pretty cool because it has an area effect as well. So like this one right here, we'll cut down a tree in basically the whole area. So basically it has an area effect by 3 by 3 by 3, and we'll cut down a whole tree. This one's good for mining. It digs in a 3 by 3 area. Same thing with the excavator. So pretty cool. Alright, so now let's start talking about a little bit more stuff in this tier 2. Now if we go into our materials in volume 2. Now a lot of you know that there are 2 pieces of ore that are in the nether. Cobalt and iodite, right? So if we jump over to cobalt and iodite, these are both found in the nether, okay? But they're very hard to mine. A diamond level pickaxe cannot mine them. So you actually have to get that something has the mining level of cobalt to get. Now let's say if I pull up obsidian, this has a mining level of 3, which is obsidian. If I scroll over here, this one has a mining level of 1, which is iron. If we go to iron, this is a mining level of 2 of redstone. Again, 1, 1. Here's this one can mine obsidian. Now here we have our first material that could mine cobalt, which is our mining level of 4, which is alumite. Alright, let's see if there's any other materials that can mine cobalt. Well, paper sure can. Cobalt can, of course. Ardite can. Manulin, of course, can. Manulin is a combination of cobalt and ardite. We'll talk about that in a minute. Copper, no, we can't. Bronze, we can't. But steel, oh, well, steel we can. And pig iron, we can't. So we now are left with 2 different materials that could mine our cobalt and ardite when going to the nether. And that's our alumite and steel. Now, a lot of times I do not make alumite because I find one piece of steel in a chest or looking around. A lot of times you'll see them in the blacksmith's chest on villages. So pretty easy to get, or you could just make a piece depending on what other mods you have installed. Now to make alumite, you're going to need obsidian, iron, and aluminum. So if I jump over here to Mighty Smelting, and if I jump over to alloys, you'll see alumite, 5 aluminum, 2 iron, and 2 pieces of obsidian. That's how you make your alumite. Now I want to show you a quick tip. Now you have obsidian, and you basically are going to need, oh, I don't need to go over there, I have one right here. You're going to need at least a diamond level pickaxe to mine the obsidian, right? And that's going to cost you 3 diamonds. Well, maybe you don't want to spend 3 diamonds on just to make a pickaxe, just to be able to mine some obsidian, just to make some alumite. I have a solution for you. We haven't talked about modifiers yet, but let me show you something real quick in the modifiers before I do this. Each of these tools have modifiers. Now if I jump over here, I'm just going to show you one modifier, and that's diamond. And adding a diamond to the edge makes it more resilient. Adds 500 durability, and a mining level is increased to level 3, which is obsidian. So if I jump over here, so then I have my flint pickaxe, a stone binding, and a stone tool rod. You can see my mining level is now iron, and it only has 85 durability. So not a great pickaxe by any stretch, right? And you can see my modifiers remaining is 3. If I toss on a diamond, my mining level is now obsidian. It used up one of my modifier slots, and now I can get this obsidian picked up just like that, and I only had to use 1 diamond compared to 3. No, it's not the fastest thing in the world by any stretch, but also at the same time I just saved you 2 diamonds to get you going towards making your alumite. So pretty quick and pretty cheap little trick to kind of get you through there. And but now that we have our pickaxe, we can actually mine up and get into our tier 3. So our tier 3 is going to be our ironite and our cobalt. And you can see my harvest level is cobalt right there. And then of course, if we go over here, manual is made up from 2 cobalt and 2 ironite. And remember 2, that means 2 ingots, which is 1 block, right? So basically 1 block and 1 block is what you need. So here's a smeltery I just made up. I used carpenter's wedge slopes on the corners just to give it a little bit of flair. I like the way it looks right here. Now if you remember, we talked about a little bit earlier, we have different sizes of smelteries. And one of the most recent versions for 1.7.10, now that Bonnie has taken over, is the inclusion of several different sizes. So basically the rules are, if it's square it'll work. So smelteries, straight off of the changelog, smelteries can have any rectangular shape from 3x3 to 4x7 to 9x9. So here I have a 5x5. And you can see how many inventory slots I have to place things. Here is a super cheap one to make. Here's just a 2x2. But again, it's only going to have 4 slots. So this might work great just if you are just getting started or just need to do a few things and you don't want to make up all these seared bricks. So pretty cool little setup right here. So that's something to play with. Now I'm going to show you what I have in here. It looks like I have some manulin, I have some cobalt, I have a little bit of iron, and this smeltery already. So let's make ourselves a tool. So I left myself pieces and parts to make a cutlass. Now the cutlass is what's going to use that full guard that I was talking about that you can only get out of the village. Now let's jump over in our materials, new volume 2, and let's look at some more information about these materials. So we talked about our durability, handle modifiers. We've talked about that. Now let's talk about the rest of the information. So we now have to talk about mining speed, basically how quickly you go through a certain material. Usually I like to use cobalt on my digging tools like my pickaxe and my shovel because it has the highest mining speed. You can see we have 14 here, 8 here, and manual, and it's 9. So if you're making digging tools, then cobalt's probably going to be a great choice. Now let's talk about a little bit right here. Base attack 1.5, 1.5, base attack is 2. So you can see if you're making something like a sword, a manual sword is going to be better than using cobalt and iodide because it has a better base attack. Now finally, let's talk about some of this material traits. So you have several different material traits. Reinforced, level 2, means that has a, if I was to equate it to vanilla enchanting, it would basically be, I'm trying to think of the name. I'll come to me in a second. We'll talk about stonebound. Stonebound means that the more you use the tool, the faster it gets. So basically your mining speed will go up. We talk about, so we had another stonebound there, we got another reinforced, we have a jagged. Jagged is good because the more it wears out, the sharper it gets. Basically it does more damage. So you get several different tools. Basically, and then what I was trying to think of is unbreaking. So if I was to equate reinforced to vanilla enchanting with basically an unbreaking. So the higher your level of your reinforcement, the less of a chance it has to use it up some durability. So now that we have all of that information, you can see Manulin, since we're going to be making a sword here, Manulin is going to be the best thing to make since we have the higher base attack. Now there's some other information you can look at. You can look at of course it has a higher durability, and because it's very expensive. Handle modifier 2.5, so it's going to be a good handle to use. Alright, so let's make this guy up. So I have Manulin in my lower slot, so I'm going to make, looks like, here is my sword blade, and here is my handle. So remember that one has the best damage, and this one has the highest handle modifier. So we'll do that and that, and just let's shake it up a little bit, and let's have a cobalt full guard. So now we are casting our stuff. Now I did left myself a tool forge right here, so I'm just going to click on any sword. Doesn't matter since we're using a full guard. And now we have our cutlass. Now, if you remember in our book, it said Manulin did a base attack of 2 hearts. Well, when you upgrade to this full guard, it actually goes to 4.5. It's pretty cool. And again, that leaves us with 3 modifiers remaining. So this is not a bad sword to start off with. If I press shift on here, you can see that my durability is 3825, but my effective durability is 4781. That accounts for the reinforced 2, and it shows me attack. So pretty neat. Now also you see in here there's another material. This is molten glass. So if you put in sand in here or vanilla glass, it will melt down to molten glass. And you can cast this in a casting basin, which I didn't show you, but it's over there somewhere. I don't have it right with me, but here's what a casting basin looks like. Just some more seared brick. If you cast that into a casting basin, you will get this clear glass that I think looks fantastic. And of course you can dye them any of the 16 colors, and you can make panes out of them. Cool thing about these is they do have connected texture. Pretty cool. I like it. So that pretty much covers the making of the tools and the 3 different three different tiers. Now the tiers is not an official thing. That's something that I put in my own words just for ease of explanation. Now let's talk about modifiers. Now you notice on my sword right here I have 3 modifiers remaining. If I jump over to Materials and U, Volume 2, you saw a little tab on there that talks about modifiers. Go towards the middle of the book, you can start talking about what the modifiers do. So we have Diamond, which adds some durability. Emerald is 50% durability and increased, and that increases the mining level. Speed is Redstone. The key thing about Redstone, as you can see, you have to, each 50 pieces of redstone counts as 1 modifier. So if you add 50 pieces, that's going to count as 1 modifier. If you add 51 pieces of redstone, that counts as 2 modifiers and leaves you still the other 49 to fill up as you go. So you have to use kind of get a good idea of what kind of tool you want to make so you can budget your modifiers. auto repair, piece of lapis, or sorry, not piece of lapis, a piece of moss. Moss is made with cobble, mossy cobble, or mossy stone, or any kind of mossy material. You can look that up in NEI. Auto smelt crystal. That's made with lava, fire charges, and I believe blaze rods, right off the top of my head. Oh, there it is right there. Luck is lapis. And you can do a max of 450 pieces of lapis, and this only counts as one modifier. So anywhere from 1 to 450 still counts as one modifier. Now the cool thing about adding luck, a lot of times what I'll do, if you watch my series, I'll just put one piece of lapis on there just to start triggering the luck, and as you use the pick, it will slowly start building up, and basically it will level itself up. So that's pretty neat. Sharpness, add some quartz to get some better sharpness. It doesn't say this in the book, but just know the higher you get for your quartz, I'm almost positive you start getting diminished returns. So keep that in mind. Fiery aspect. Necrotic bone, which is a life steal. So basically, as long as you're still swinging the sword, you're getting hearts back. So it doesn't matter how much damage you're doing. Well, it doesn't matter how much damage you're doing, but basically it's a life steal. I don't want to get too technical. Silky, basically it gives you a silk touch. And here's how you make that. That's aluminum brass with that. Reinforced, you can upgrade the reinforced. It is possible to make a unbreakable tool, but I'll leave that as an Easter egg. You can figure that out. Knockback. Beheading. It works great for if you're looking for wither skeletons. Bane of Arthropods, Smite. Some of these are pretty simple. Now we're going to talk about flux. So if you have thermal expansion installed, you can put a flux capacitor or a energy cell on here, and what that'll do is trigger the flux. I don't want to call it enchant, but flux modifier. And basically what that'll do is it'll pull durability off of pull RF, the flux, out of the flux capacitor or the energy cell, and use that, not applying any damage to the tool itself. So basically it's a rechargeable tool. Now if you run out of power, then it'll start applying damage to your tools. So this is quickly and recently become one of my favorite ways to do this, because I can just charge things up and keep on rolling. You can see, like I was just talking about, you use the energy cell as well. Now talk about additional modifiers. There's 3 different additional modifiers. So a block of gold and a diamond will give you 1 extra additional modifier. A notch apple, which is the 8 gold blocks around an apple, and a diamond block will give you 1 more. And another star will give you the final additional modifier. There's 1 more in here, but again, this is a creative only. And I just happened to pull down just a few of the ones that I most commonly use. So to add modifiers, just throw it in your tool forge. I am on the repair. And you can see that does now add 8 levels of quartz, and you can see now I have gone up from 4 hearts, 4.5 to now 5. Now that's 5.5. Now that's 6. So it's pretty neat to wait to kind of level up your tool. So they can add a flux. So now it has 400,000 RF on there. And now it has lifesteal. And now I've used up all 3 of my modifiers. Well, I didn't finish putting quartz on it. I could go up to level 72, or to 72 pieces. But it's a pretty decent sword, right? Now, that's the basics of all the mods. Now over here is just me just kind of playing right now. Now if I jump over to, again, Materials and You, Volume 2, I want to show you something in here. We're going to talk about paper. It's a very weak, but can take a lot of modification. So basically when you apply a paper, you will have a +1 modifier. And the material trait is writable. So let's say if I made this cutlass with, let's say, a paper full guard, because again I want to use the manual for the high base attack, and I want to use the manual tool rod because that can give me a high handle modifier, but the full guard's not going to count for my durability, I could now come off with having 4 extra modifiers. Now, it doesn't say it in this book, but if you have Thaumcraft installed, like I do, you can also get an additional modifier. So there's, depending on how you make your tools, you can have up to, basically, well, let me show you. So here is one of my favorite pickaxe, and I had a +1 modifier. So here is a cobalt head because of the mining speed. I'm using a paper binding, and I'm using a thaumium tool rod, and this gives me 5 modifiers. So that's my 3, 4, 5. Now, if you don't have Thaumcraft installed, or you don't want to make the thaumium, here it is again with using manual, and it gives me 4 modifiers remaining. So I took that one right here, so this has +5, I added one more, so it'd be 6, and here's what I made. So this has a mining speed of 36, a fortune 3, and it has a flux capacitor on there, so it'll take all the durability will go to flux before it starts applying it to the cobalt. So that's a pretty nice pick, right? Mining speed 36 and fortune 3. It's pretty nice. So we're going to give that a shot. We're going to play with that. Let me just put this up right there. So here is a sword that I made. So again, this is one that I was kind of describing in what I was describing over there. So this one actually has 5 modifiers remaining, like I was talking about. And here's what I did with 5 modifiers. I have a base attack of 11 hearts, with best should one-shot just about everything. This now gives me looting 3, necrotic, which gives me the life steal, and then I'll flux. Like again, I've recently just fallen in to start using the flux because I just like the charging up instead of having to go and find more manulin or find more cobalt nardite and then repair it like that. I've just found I like this more. And repairs takes the same modifier. So this is just my most recent trend. So it's pretty cool. Basically, it's a one shot to most mobs. Here is a hammer that I did +2 modifiers. So here is the one that I made. So I used a piece of thaumium tool rod, a cobalt head. Now on the hammer head is actually what tells what your mining speed and your mining level is, not the plates. So keep that in mind. And then I have a paper up here just to go ahead and trigger that 5th modifier. But I do take a little bit of hit on my durability because I'm using the paper up here. But 6,000, 6,300 durability, it's nothing to laugh at. So here's what I did with that. So again, 250 redstone to have a mining speed of 40, flux, and then fortune 3. But since you can also use it as a melee weapon, it'll go ahead and say it's looting 3 as well. So we're going to try that one out. Now those are just 3 of the tools that I like to use, just kind of my personal way to set up. Everybody has their unique way. These are all just different suggestions and things you could do. Now these 2, I was just having fun. I have no great explanation. I actually have made this one recently, but here is a excavator. Got manulin, paper, manulin there. I use no extra modifiers, and what this is, a pretty quick with a repair, and it has a lava crystal. So this is my Glassmaker 3000. And then finally, another thing that I've made here is a cleaver. Now the cool thing about a cleaver, it has a base modifier. I don't want to say about modifier, but base attribute that it has a beheading chance. In fact, actually, probably chance to behead 20%. Now that's just base. So again, manulin, thaumium, paper, and there. So let me show you what I did here. So this has beheading 3, quartz enough to make it above 10 hearts of damage, fortune 3, and an auto repair. And this has a 50% chance to behead. So that's pretty cool. And of course it does looting 3. So think about that for your wither skeleton hunting right there. So now let's go ahead and give these a shot. So set up a little test area. So here's the pickaxe, almost insta-mine. Not bad. Here's the hammer. I mean, you can tear through a lot of material like that. And here is the cobalt excavator for the Glassmaker 3000. You know, pretty neat. Now you'll also see that if you cook, you can also cook the grass and you'll get dry dirt. So pretty neat. Alright, we jump back here and let's talk about just a few other odds and ends of Tinker's Construct, and then we'll start wrapping up. So here is a drying rack. The cool thing about drying rack is either you can hang things on there, like if I can hang my excavator in this case right there. But what it's mainly used for is to putting rotten flesh on there and drying it out to get monster jerky, which you can then eat, but I'm not hungry so I can't eat. So again, some other cool things. We got some TNT-like devices. I'll let you play with those on your own. We have our ham bone, which again, kind of an Easter egg. I don't want to say Easter egg, but that's just part of it. The oak barricades are very cool. They're just made with logs. I'm going to jump into creative just so I can play with this a little bit. And the cool thing about this is you can basically customize the way you want it to look. Whether you want it just like that, or you just want one on the bottom, one on the top, you know, pretty cool. And they're very cheap to make. They're just lapis. And here, I'm not sorry, just oak. In this case, oak barricade, but they're just logs. And here, I just brought down a slimy tree from up there just to see it grow in the overworld. Now, one other thing I just want to talk about very briefly as I clear out inventory. Actually, two more things. I didn't talk about this because I left it in my inventory. Yeah, it's empty. This is a knapsack made with leather, iron tufts, tool rods, and either aluminum, brass, or gold. If you go into your inventory, I need to jump into survival. If you go to this tab, you can actually equip your knapsack right here, and it will give you an additional 27 slot inventory. So basically it's your backpack. Just kind of throw stuff in there and it's there. And you can take it off. You throw it back on. There it is. Pretty neat. Now, last thing and final thing I want to talk about before we wrap up. It has been kind of a long spotlight. I know that, but there's a lot of things to cover. And I'm probably going to do an updated spotlight once we start getting our hands on the new crossbows and new longbows from new Tinker's Construct. Now, since I am playing on the crack pack, there is a interface with metallurgy. And actually, it'd be easiest for me to demonstrate this in creative. If I go over to the Tinker's Construct tab, where are you? That's not the one I want. This is the one I want. You can see you can use these different materials from Metallurgy 4 in your crafting of tools. So like Quicksilver, that's Metallurgy 4. There's, let's see, let's find another one. That one is Titanium. Damascus Steel. So there's a little bit of interface between the two mods. Now again, there is a wiki page online that you can look up to kind of compare. Now, just because it's Metallurgy 4, it is very appropriate to, it scales very appropriate. Like the high-end materials in Metallurgy 4 equate to high-end materials in Tinker's Construct. If you use the crappy material from Metallurgy 4, then that, you're going to get a crappy tool from there as well. And here is just a couple of them that I pulled off. Here's adamantine pickaxe and Alteris hammer. So pretty neat. I love the interface and the interconnection between those two mods. Gonna just give you more options. So that's gonna wrap up the Tinker's Construct for 1.7.10 mod spotlight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions or if I missed anything. And again, look out for my new spotlight. If you're new to my channel, thanks for joining me. All my information's down below. I'm doing several, or right now at least one Let's Play series of modded Minecraft on the Crack Pack. So check that out. Otherwise, I'll talk to you guys soon.